from anyone that managed to listen, what has stuck? Oh, Reg liked it, and liked it a lot in capitals. Good, Reg, because it was really hard to record. We had to do it 3 times because Sarah and I could not agree on what we should talk about. And there actually is not a lot of research on like leading and following. Half of it, I like Rebecca's divided it in the dog walks. But if it was, so what stuck everyone? So Nikki and listens and followers, leaders and followers equally important. Yeah. So kind of got this idea that it's equally important. I think that's a really good point. I'm going to replay the definitions in a second that we used in the podcast about what a leader is and what a follower is, because it was quite helpful. But yeah, they are equally important. Often I think the follower role is seen as like a slightly like an inferior role, like it's the leader that's the important person, but actually leaders don't go very far without amazing followers behind them. So I actually think followers are very powerful. Good to know how to adapt. Yeah, the kind of understanding that this is something that you can adapt. You can be both. It's better to be both. There's a quote that I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was basically that, I think it was from Aristotle, apparently quite a wise person, who said that you can't be a very good leader unless you are also a good follower. Like, so if you want to be a better leader, it is important to play the role of a follower so that you can understand how to influence people more, which I thought was an interesting point. Yeah, Marietta, that is the quote I'm going to share in a minute. It's a Sheryl Sandberg, very good with the quotes, Sheryl Sandberg. That's interesting, Sarah. Listen to part of it. How to reconcile myself to follow mode, my very directive boss. Yeah, that's really interesting. Like, are you being forced into a follower mode, and what's your opportunity to maybe kind of create some leadership opportunities? Interesting. I'm quite interested in the insight that a lot of people have listened to half of it. We are going to be doing some super short podcast episodes in January to support the new book, which maybe like sort of 10-15 minute ones. So maybe you can get those all in one listen. Thank you, Lucy, for sharing that very wise quote from Aristotle. Okay, so let me just do a few bits of recap. These are the quotes that we used in the podcast for what it means to be a leader and what our kind of baseline for what it means to be a follower is. The top one is the adapted Sheryl Sandberg quote, which is that a leader is someone who things are better as a result of your presence and your impact that lasts in your absence. I really liked that. I kind of thought, is it just a nice, I don't know, I found it quite warming. I was like, oh, I want to be a leader who does that. I think I make people better and things better because I'm there, and then a positive impact that lasts in my absence. Maybe it should say positive impact that lasts in your absence, because I think it could be some kind of other impact that lasts. And then followership, that was the one that I would say there isn't loads of stuff on it. So the definition that Sarah and I got to was it was about supporting a person, a principle, or a purpose outside of yourself. So not necessarily, it's something that someone else is driving forward and you're kind of making a conscious decision to support that. So I thought they were quite useful definitions. I'm just going to look at Helen's question. I wonder if advocacy or sponsorship could come under follower mode in the spirit of amplifying others' messages. Yes, isn't that nice? Yeah, so can a sponsor be a follower? Because a sponsor is arguably supporting a person, principle, or purpose outside of yourself. Sylvia Ann Hewlett, who is my go-to guru on all things sponsorship, who we had on the podcast talking about sponsorship, she would say that their sponsors get as much back as they do give. So yes, they are supporting somebody outside of themselves, but also because they benefit. So a sponsor benefits from what their sponsee brings to them, which could be a new sense of perspective, sometimes the halo effect of the success of the sponsee in their career. So yeah, I really like that thought that you see sponsorship as quite a leading role, but actually it could be supporting. I wanted to ask you a question, and I'm going to make this anonymous first of all, and people that are new to Populous, I'll tell you how to do this. My first question is, which mode do you find yourself spending more time in? So you're going to stick the stars on which of these modes. For all of the new people, the way that we do this annotation thing that everyone's going to start doing quickly on the screen is if you go towards the top of your screen, you should see something that says view options. And if you click on, if you can't see this, it might be something to do with Zoom settings, so don't worry, you can just drop it in the chat for me. But if anyone that can, it's view options and then annotate, stamp and star, and Sarah has put that into the chat so that you can kind of see those instructions too. But view options, annotate, stamp and star. So the first question that I have for you is, where do you spend most of your time today? Someone's adding a heart in the middle as well, so I'm like, is that because you're skilled at flexing between the two perhaps? So it's looking pretty equal. Nikki, I'm gonna add yours on there for you. Nikki gets a heart because I quite like the hearts today. So we are okay. What do you reckon? Pretty equal. And then that wasn't particularly revealing then. We're pretty equal. We're a group that's evenly split. Let's see whether the next one has any insights for us. Where would you like to spend, sorry, Nikki, I have to get rid of your heart. Where would you like to spend more of your time? Would you like to spend more of your time in leader mode, or would you like to spend more of your time in follower mode? What mode is like one that you feel like I'd like to invest some effort and energy in figuring out this one? That's interesting. I feel like, okay, some people want to learn to flex. I'm assuming that that's what this means in the middle here, that we want to learn to flex. And the majority of us are here and here. I'm adding the manuals. Interesting. Okay, so leader, but this time incorporating the 3 tips. Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm just going to draw cake off your lovely hearts and stars, and then dive a bit deeper into leading and following. The first thing I wanted to do is a bit of a breakout. It's going to be a relatively quick breakout because I need to sort of end Pod Plus Day at 9:25 because I've got a session that I'm doing. But I did want to give you the opportunity to just talk a little bit about your experience of leaders. So I'm going to put you into a breakout room with 3 people for 7 minutes. It's quick. So you might get a chance to talk to like sort of one of you might talk about this, and I guess 2 of you might be in listening mode. But the question for you in your breakout room is, when do you think you have led most effectively, and what did you learn by doing that? So you're going to kind of reflect back, when was I most effective as a leader, and like what was I doing that made a difference? So before I talk about how to be into effective leader mode, you will definitely have done it before, and so let's kind of mine your experience first. So I'm going to stop sharing. Hopefully you've all got that question, and then we're going to go into breakout rooms. For anybody that doesn't want to join a breakout room, can't get them working, please do not worry. I'm going to create them. They will open up for 7 minutes, and then we'll come back together and we'll see if we can get some shared insights from them. So rooms are opening now. Some of the things that you learned about when you looked at you in your kind of leading best in your career, what were some of the things that you reflected on that you were doing? Things like, yeah, Ting had an example of being a really good leader kind of at uni, and it's harder to do it in corporate life. One of the reasons, politics, yeah, or company politics. I actually quite like company politics. I think I've said on the podcast before that somebody once called me a corporate animal, which I don't think is brilliant, but it's because I quite like navigating politics. Listening, Elaine, I love that. So leaders, great leaders are able to listen. Really important that, and listening and pacing, that's really nice. So that idea that you're able to adapt your pace maybe to what people need. So sometimes they need the high energy leadership to get them going, and sometimes they need maybe a more reflective leader that feels like they're being heard by that leader. There's a lovely phrasing actually, leading and pacing. I like that a lot. Both asking questions and involving. Yes, Helen. So we had one of our kind of top 3 tips was about involve, don't solve. So don't have to solve every problem. And actually, if you try and approach leadership like that, you're probably going to get overwhelmed by it all as well. Oh, also, Lucy, I lead in the way I'd like to follow. I mean, that's a very quotable statement. I like that a lot. Amal and I talked about clarity, being clear. Yeah, we also said that leaders communicate with clarity. That was one of our tips. Absolutely. It's if you want to have followers kind of aligned behind the purpose or the thing that you're trying to do, it is very important that you are able to communicate with clarity, or that followership sort of loses its way. People might kind of support you, but they might not know how to specifically support you. Yeah, Emma, really good point about seeing the bigger picture. On the podcast, we talked about the sort of like the helicopter view, knowing when to kind of be a helicopter and to kind of sort of give people direction, and then to be able to take a step back. I think that is a real skill, because sometimes when you're very passionate about something, you want to be close to it all the time, but actually to scale your impact, you have to let your followers find their own way. And I think there's a bit of ego and a bit of fear, I think, that can stop leaders being able to take a step back. As somebody that struggles with that, it's definitely like fear and ego that gets in my way of oh, but what will happen if I'm not close to it, or but I could do that. It's all that kind of stuff. Oh, glad you like the breakout rooms. Relentless empathy. I love that. because I have been described as relentless. That's probably why I like it, but I love that. Relentless empathy. Sarah likes Microsoft leadership principles. Are you a Microsofter, Sarah? Clarity, create clarity, generate energy, deliver results. All good. Reminds me of, oh gosh, Andy Bird's book about future engage deliver, I think it's called. I'm probably going to get that wrong, but he has some really good principles. Andy's a great coach. Ex-Microsofty, but carry those principles with me. Okay, so that was kind of our leader points. To be an effective leader, or everything that you said, again, might be worth saving, because there might be some sort of that you could do a bit of self-evaluation based on what people have said. You could think about that. Yeah, Steve, that's it. Yeah. It is fed. I read that when I was at Eon a long time ago, and he's great. So yeah, it might be worth saving some of those things and just doing a little bit of self-reflection on, if you want to spend more time in leader mode, how much of those things are you doing in your day-to-day role, and could you improve in any of those areas? I also wanted to talk a bit about followers then, and I know that wasn't the focus for everybody, but you kind of go back to, if you want to be a better leader, then maybe the easiest thing to start with is to be a bit of a follower and be a better follower. Helen, we know him actually, so that is actually isn't that hard to get Steve on. I say Steve, not Andy Bird, but yes, okay, mental, taken that direction, Helen. I like it. So followers, for people that are following at the moment, and you kind of see yourself in follower mode, do you think you're following, and we're going to use the annotations, if you kind of recognize yourself in follower mode, are you following a person? So maybe it's a thought leader, or maybe it's a manager or someone at work. Do you feel like you're following a purpose? So is there something that feels bigger than you that you are like, I want to follow that? Or is it is there some kind of principle, some sort of statement that motivates you, that you like, I follow that? Maybe it's something about a principle about work is about work-life fit, not work-life balance, or something like that. What are you doing today? What are you doing today? What feels like more purpose? If anyone's willing to sort of share that particular purpose bit, because the person one might feel quite personal, but if anyone is willing to share the purpose that they feel like they are following, supporting something bigger than themselves, do let us know in Brené Brown is both person. Now that's someone I would like to get on the podcast. Introductions welcomed. Yeah, I know, I'd love to get her on. Anyone, so yeah, those people that have put the stars on purpose, do let us know what is the purpose that you are following. You may inspire us all to join you and following that by doing it. Our kind of purpose, obviously, making careers better for everybody. I'm thinking purpose a task project. Is it a wider life question? No, not necessarily. No, I think there's no perfect purpose. Purpose is something that's meaningful and motivating to you, and that can be, make the world more sustainable, or it could be something that's kind of smaller. It's meaningful for you, but it's sort of closer to your everyday. It's just something that is meaningful and motivating to you at work. And I think the question for you to reflect on, it's not to answer now, but in the context of this thing that you are following, whether it is a person or whether it is a purpose or the principle, like really think, how does my followership help? How am I helping to share, to scale, to improve that person, that purpose, or that principle? I would really think about, what are the actions that I am doing that are helping to support that following? And there were 3 things that we talked about on the podcast that can just maybe are worth you just thinking through. So really good followers have got initiative and autonomy. They are not waiting to be told what to do. They are thinking, oh, what is a problem that might get in the way of realizing that purpose? If Helen wants to make careers better for everybody, what is something that I think could be a blocker to that? And how could I help overcome that blocker? And it's sort of like, just going forward with that idea and that insight and making things happen. It might be, I'm going to share some ideas with Helen, or I'm going to connect her to somebody that I think could help with this thing that I can see being a challenge in the future. It's that sort of thing. Great followers take that. Great followers sort of lead in their following, if that makes sense. Also, great followers, they think about, what are the very specific skills that I've got that project purpose person might not have, that it might be missing, because they can increase the impact of their followership when they increase their competence and their credibility. So they think about improving themselves to improve the kind of the following that they're doing. And then last but not least, I love this. This is kind of where I'm going to end. Disagreeing agreeably. So being a good follower does not mean you're you have to be sort of subservient to the leader. It means that you have the confidence to be able to disagree agreeably. And I really like the framing that we got to in the podcast on this, which was if then. So you say, if you care about making work better for everyone, then I think that the lack of clarity we've got around hybrid working might be holding that back. Like, it's this if then. If you use the if and like, what does this person care about? Then it gives you a good way to kind of disagree agreeably. So I really like that if then framing as a way of like sharing what might feel like a hard message, but are ultimately about improving the thing that you're passionate about following. Oh, I'm glad, Nikki. So without a follower, there are no leaders, Adam. Yes, that is very true and very wise. So for things to help, and then a heads up of what's coming, if it's a topic that resonates, because I think it's quite a new area, it does take a little bit of reflection for you to kind of manage your mode. Recommend the pod sheet. That's just on the website, and it's got some of those sort of reflective questions, like what would you find challenging about it, and some other resources and prompts for you, some of which I've talked through now, but might be useful. And then heads up, everybody, next week we are starting a new Ask the Expert series. So we have got lots of different people. We're going to be kicking off talking about uncertainty and how you manage uncertainty at work. For anyone that saw Sam Conniff on Podplus recently, that first episode is with him. And then we've got lots of speakers. We're talking about influence, we're talking about success, we're talking about leadership, lots of lovely people sharing their words of wisdom. Yes, Sam, we love Sam too. He's a star. So that is what's coming. I'm going to stop now, partly because I have another session and partly because I'm supposed to stop now. But I hope that has been useful. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you all to the new people. I hope you will come back. Lovely to see lots of familiar faces as well, everybody. Have a good rest of your working week and see you all very soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.